They told you money was just paper, numbers on a screen, a neutral tool. They lied. Money is power wearing a friendly mask. It's control wrapped in the illusion of choice. It moves the world, shapes empires, and decides who gets to breathe easy and who gets crushed beneath debt and desperation. Money is the quiet god we all kneel to, some willingly, others unknowingly. And those who understand its psychology don't just earn it, they command it. But here's the truth most never face. Money doesn't reward goodness. It rewards perception, strategy, leverage. The weak chase it, the strong make it chase them. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago, that wealth, like power, flows toward those who understand human nature, not those who simply work hard. Hard work without strategy is slavery with extra steps. Look around. The people who own the world aren't the most talented or moral. They're the ones who learned how to shape desire, how to turn perception into currency. The rich aren't selling products, they're selling illusions. Confidence, status, belonging, those are the currencies that create money out of thin air. And the ones who fall for it, they become the fuel that keeps the machine alive. Machiavelli would have told you, never resent the game, learn it. Because the moment you start to believe the world owes you fairness, you've already lost. The world doesn't deal in fairness, it deals in power. And power follows wealth like a shadow follows light. You can't talk about money without talking about control. Control of your time, control of your options, control of the narrative others have about you. Poor people trade time for survival. The wealthy trade perception for freedom. That's the cruel equilibrium. And the more you try to escape it without understanding it, the deeper it pulls you in. The lie begins early. You're told to go to school, follow the rules, work hard, and eventually the system will reward you. But that's not a path, it's a leash, designed to keep you predictable, docile, and easily replaceable. The system needs workers, not thinkers. It needs consumers, not creators. Because once you think, once you see behind the illusion, you stop playing the role assigned to you, and that makes you dangerous. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He wrote not for the masses, but for rulers, for those who wanted to understand the mechanics of power. He knew that virtue without leverage is decoration, that morality without strategy is self-destruction. When he said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both," he wasn't glorifying cruelty. He was warning you that affection fades, but control lasts. Apply that to money. People will love you when you give them value, but they will fear losing you when you become valuable. And that is where real wealth begins, not in having money, but in being something money can't easily replace. Think about that. Every time you sell your time, you sell a piece of your power. Every hour given away for a paycheck is an hour you'll never get back, an invisible exchange most people make without ever questioning the terms. You can make more money, but not more time. So why do people trade the rarest thing they have for something that only seems rare? Because they never learned how to create it. Because they were never taught what money really is. Money is not value. Money is a belief, a shared fiction, enforced by trust and fear. It exists because people agree that it exists. Its power comes from collective faith. Machiavelli would say, whoever controls belief controls wealth. That's why kings minted coins with their faces. That's why corporations build brands like religions. Because money doesn't need logic, it needs narrative. And here's the catch. Once you understand that money is psychological, everything changes. You stop asking, how do I earn more? And start asking, what do people believe is worth paying for? You stop thinking like a worker and start thinking like a ruler, not in cruelty, but in clarity. Because money obeys those who understand emotion. Every ad you see, every financial trend, every limited time offer, they're all engineered to bypass reason and target your primal wiring. They speak to fear, to desire, to status, to the desperate human need to matter. And most people will trade almost anything to feel significant, their money, their morals, even their freedom. Machiavelli's brilliance wasn't that he endorsed manipulation, it's that he exposed it. He saw that the powerful use human nature as currency. If you know what people fear, you can predict their choices. If you know what they desire, you can sell them the illusion of fulfillment. That's how kingdoms are built and how modern billionaires operate. Here's the thing, most people think money changes you. It doesn't, it reveals you. It strips away the pretense and shows the raw hierarchy of values beneath. Give a coward money and he becomes reckless. Give a tyrant money and he becomes a god. Give a strategist money and he builds empires quietly while everyone else chases status symbols. That's why wealth is dangerous for those who don't understand themselves. It amplifies your flaws. It turns small insecurities into obsession. You start buying not because you need, but because you want to prove to yourself, to others, that you matter. But here's the trap. You can't buy enough to fill an inner void. You can only distract it. The system knows that. It feeds on that. Machiavelli would tell you that true power lies not in owning wealth, but in mastering your relationship to it. Because if you can't walk away from money, it owns you. If your identity depends on your possessions, you're already a servant, just dressed in luxury. The most dangerous thing a person can be is dependent. Dependence is invisible slavery. You can dress it in ambition, hide it behind comfort, but it's still a chain. The poor depend on jobs. The middle class depend on appearances. The rich depend on markets. But the powerful, they depend only on knowledge, strategy, and adaptability. Those are the real currencies that never devalue. We've been trained to think like soldiers in someone else's army, trading loyalty for crumbs, gratitude for exploitation. But once you understand the rules, you start building your own kingdom. That doesn't mean rebellion for rebellion's sake. It means reclaiming authorship of your life. It means learning how to make money serve you rather than worshiping it. Because the moment you see how the game is played, you stop chasing comfort and start pursuing freedom. Comfort is how the system tames lions. Freedom is how you reclaim your nature. Here's what they don't want you to realize. Money doesn't flow to those who need it most. It flows to those who command attention, trust, and leverage. Need is irrelevant. The world doesn't pay for need, it pays for influence. Machiavelli wrote that men are moved more by what they see than by what they hear. That's the law of perception, still true, still undefeated. If you look powerful, if you sound certain, the world bends slightly in your favor, because people crave direction. They follow confidence like moths follow light, even if that light burns them in the end. This is why image isn't vanity, it's currency. The right posture, tone, timing, they can open doors that money alone cannot. Every ruler, every CEO, every influencer understands this instinctively. Control perception, and money follows like a shadow. But there's a deeper lesson hiding beneath the strategy, a paradox Machiavelli would have appreciated. The more you chase wealth for its own sake, the poorer you feel, because the pursuit becomes a cage. But when you pursue understanding, when you learn how the psychology of money works, you stop needing more just to feel enough. You become dangerous in the calmest way possible. Someone who can play the game without being consumed by it. Money doesn't corrupt people. It exposes who was corruptible all along. The truth is, most people don't want freedom. They want comfort disguised as success. They'll take predictable misery over uncertain power, just so they can sleep at night telling themselves they're doing fine. But fine is the quiet death of ambition. It's what the system sells to keep the herd calm. Machiavelli would call this the illusion of safety. The belief that if you just follow the rules, the world will reward your obedience. But he knew the world rewards boldness, not compliance. The man who asks permission starves. The man who acts decisively eats. In wealth, it's no different. Money gravitates to certainty, not morality, not talent, certainty. Because when you sound certain, people trust you with their fear. They hand you their decisions, their attention, their investments, everything they don't want to carry. And if you're wise, you'll understand that trust is worth more than gold. Gold can vanish. Trust builds empire. Every rich dynasty, every powerful state Machiavelli observed was built on one fundamental truth. Wealth flows toward control. Control of land, of labor, of minds. In his time, that meant ruling cities and armies. In ours, it means controlling attention. Whoever commands attention commands the market. Whoever controls belief prints their own money. Think of it. Kings used banners and bloodlines. Modern rulers use algorithms and branding. Different tools, same principle, shape what people desire and they'll pay you to lead them. That's the essence of Machiavellian wealth, not greed, but the mastery of perception. And that's where most people fail. They think money is about numbers. It's not. It's about psychology. The poor man counts coins. The powerful man counts influence. The poor man asks, how can I afford this? The strategist asks, how can I make this indispensable to others? One is trapped in consumption. The other lives in creation. Machiavelli taught that the prince must always appear virtuous, even when he acts in self-interest. Not because hypocrisy is noble, but because appearance is influence. The same rule applies to wealth. It's not the possession of money that commands respect, but the image of control that money projects. When people believe you have power, they treat you as if you do, and their belief becomes your reality. This is why the richest people you'll ever meet are often quiet. They don't flaunt, they calculate. They know that wealth is most powerful when it's invisible, when it works behind the curtain, funding movements, shaping decisions, buying silence. Machiavelli understood that open displays of power invite enemies. Subtle power builds kingdoms that last. He would tell you, it's not about how much you own, but what you can make others do without them realizing it was your idea. That's the dark genius of wealth, not accumulation, but orchestration. And yet money alone is nothing without will. The will to decide, to act, to risk being hated for being unshakable. Because make no mistake, the moment you start understanding money's true nature, you'll be accused of cynicism, arrogance, manipulation. That's what happens when you stop worshiping illusions. The crowd hates what it doesn't understand, but Machiavelli would smile and say, let them hate as long as they obey. Translation, let them misunderstand you as long as your strategy works. The world runs not on fairness, but on function. Here's where most people fall apart. They confuse wealth with worth. They think having money will make them valuable. But Machiavelli would have told you that value doesn't come from what you possess. It comes from what you can leverage. Possession fades. Leverage endures. A castle without soldiers is a ruin waiting to happen. A bank account without influence is a target waiting to be drained. Money without knowledge is a temporary illusion of power, a storm that ends the moment someone smarter takes notice. To build lasting wealth, you have to understand what Machiavelli called fortuna, fortune, fate, the unpredictable forces that crush the unprepared. He wrote that fortune controls half of human affairs, but the other half belongs to virtue, not virtue in the moral sense, but strength, cunning, adaptability, the will to shape chaos instead of fearing it. In modern terms, markets crash, currencies fail, trends vanish, fortune moves like a storm. You can't stop it. But virtue is what lets you navigate it. The discipline to adapt, the courage to act when others freeze, the intellect to exploit opportunity while others complain about luck. Because here's the truth, money isn't earned. It's taken, not by theft, but by insight, by understanding where value hides while others are distracted by noise. The wealthiest people don't chase money, they chase leverage. They find what the world undervalues and control it before the crowd catches on. That's the Machiavellian method. Study the nature of power, not the rules of the game, because the rules are written by those who already won, and the only way to win is to see beyond them. He would remind you that generosity, while noble, is often the most dangerous form of weakness. A ruler who gives too much is soon despised for not giving more. Likewise, a man who spends to impress will eventually go broke trying to sustain an image he never earned. Wealth must be used strategically, never sentimentally. Spend to reinforce your position, not to soothe your ego. This is the brutal logic of power. Mercy without control is exploitation waiting to happen. And in money, mercy means being sentimental with your time, your effort, your focus. Every minute wasted on distraction is a coin stolen from your future. Here's what most won't admit. The economy isn't designed to make you rich. It's designed to keep you dependent. To keep you busy enough to feel productive and tired enough to never question the cycle. You're told to save money while inflation silently robs your saving. You're told to work hard while automation and capital make labor increasingly worthless. The rules are written to protect the few who understand leverage, not the many who worship hustle. Machiavelli would say, if you want to rise, don't beg the system for permission, learn how it works, then quietly turn it to your favor. Understand incentives and you understand everything. Why people buy, why they obey, why they betray. The merchant sells not to help you, but to feed his ambition. The employer pays not for your value, but for the profit he can extract from your hours. The politician promises freedom to gain control. It's all the same engine fueled by perception, driven by self-interest. So stop pretending money is moral. It's not good or evil. It's neutral like fire. It burns the fool and builds for the wise. What matters is who's holding the match. And here's something darker but true. Money doesn't make people greedy. Poverty does. Desperation breeds corruption. It's the man who's cornered that cheats, steals, betrays. The rich sin for sport, the poor sin for survival. Machiavelli would say the only true sin is ignorance, not knowing the cost of your own choices, because ignorance is what makes you exploitable. It's what keeps you working for a dream you don't own, buying symbols of success instead of building its foundation. You can't free yourself from a system you don't understand. The irony, you don't need to be rich to think like a ruler. You only need to stop thinking like a servant. servants wait for instruction. Rulers make moves. Servants hope the economy improves. Rulers learn how to profit in any condition. When you stop seeing money as your master and start seeing it as your instrument, everything changes. You stop asking for opportunities and start creating them. You stop reacting to fear and start predicting it. You stop needing validation and start commanding respect. That's the shift Machiavelli wanted every strategist to make, from passive morality to active mastery, from hoping the world treats you kindly to understanding that the world only respects those who can't be ignored. The essence of wealth is not accumulation, it's freedom of movement, the ability to act without asking permission, to move your resources, your time, your focus where they serve you best. That's why the most valuable currency isn't cash, it's control. Control of your schedule, your emotions, your attention. Lose those, and no amount of money can buy them back. The world is full of people chasing financial freedom while living like slaves to impulse. They earn more, spend more, show more, but they feel less. Because they've mistaken abundance for peace. Machiavelli would laugh at that. He'd say, you seek peace in possessions, but possessions are just the camouflage of fear. The one who truly understands money uses it like a sword, not to show off, but to cut through illusion. He knows when to spend, when to save, when to risk, when to walk away. He knows that every transaction is a negotiation of power, and that the one who needs less always holds more. The one who needs less always holds more. That's the paradox they don't teach you in schools. You've been told to dream of more, earn more, accumulate endlessly, as if wealth were a mountain you climb to reach peace at the top. But the truth, the mountain never ends. Every step you take only shows you new peaks. And if you never learn when to stop climbing, you'll die chasing a horizon that keeps moving. Machiavelli would tell you that control begins not with what you can command outside yourself, but with what you can command within. Because if you can't master your own desires, someone else will. The merchants, the advertisers, the politicians, they don't need to force you. They just need to understand what you crave. Once they do, you'll chain yourself. Money reveals that craving. For one man, it's security. For another, recognition. For some, it's revenge disguised as ambition. Each of these desires makes you predictable, and in the realm of power, predictability is weakness. So ask yourself, what do you truly want from money? Freedom, validation, peace. Until you answer that honestly, you'll be ruled by the illusion of pursuit. Because if you don't define your relationship with money, it will define you, and it will not be gentle. Machiavelli understood this at a level most modern thinkers still don't. To him, power and wealth were not goals, but instruments, tools that reveal character. And the moment you stop seeing them as tools, they begin to use you. The clever mistake the crowd makes is believing that money equals independence. It doesn't. Dependence simply changes form. You may not depend on an employer anymore, but now you depend on markets, clients, investors, public image. The chains get shinier, that's all. Real independence doesn't come from what you have, it comes from what you can walk away from. The ability to walk away is the purest expression of power. To say no when everyone else would compromise, to remain silent when others beg for approval, that's the quiet wealth of the self-mastered. The man who can decline money without resentment has already won a kind of freedom that no currency can buy. Machiavelli would have called that strength of will, virtue. The capacity to remain unmoved by fortune's storms, to bend the world gently without breaking yourself. He admired those who could play the game ruthlessly but never lose their soul to it. Because the ultimate victory isn't domination, it's detachment. But let's not confuse detachment with apathy. Detachment is precision. It's the ability to act without being possessed by what you pursue. It's knowing how to play the game without mistaking the game for life itself. Think of how easily the powerful fall, not because they lose money, but because they lose perspective. They forget that money was a means, not an identity. They become trapped in the echo of their own image, buying more to feel alive, manipulating more to stay relevant, destroying more to feel safe. The tragedy isn't that they lost it all, it's that they became hollow long before that. Machiavelli saw this decay in princes who gained thrones but lost themselves. A prince who cannot command himself, he wrote, cannot command others. The same truth applies to us. The self-uncontrolled cannot sustain wealth because money amplifies whatever chaos already lives inside you. You want to know how money really works? It magnifies. It doesn't change your nature, it broadcasts it. Give a coward wealth and he hides behind it. Give an addict wealth and he destroys himself faster. Give a strategist wealth and he builds something that outlasts him. So before chasing the millions, master the mirror. Because wealth without self-awareness is just chaos with better furniture. The real Machiavellian lesson is this: the economy is not the battlefield, the mind is. The wars of wealth are fought in discipline and patience, in the refusal to chase every glittering distraction. Machiavelli admired the fox and the lion, the fox for its cunning, the lion for its force. To be powerful, he said, you must know when to be both. The fox avoids traps, the lion scares wolves. In money, cunning is how you make it, force is how you keep it. Without one, you're prey, without the other, you're a pawn. Cunning without courage leads to anxiety, endless strategy with no action. Courage without cunning leads to ruin, reckless moves with no foresight. Wealth demands both, subtlety and strength, foresight and decisiveness. The fox studies markets. The lion moves before the crowd. Together they build empires. But there's another animal Machiavelli never named: the serpent, the one that sheds its skin when necessary. Adaptability is wealth's final rule. The moment you stop adapting, your wealth begins dying. Money moves like water. It flows toward those who remain fluid, who can change industries, identities, methods without losing themselves. The tragedy of most people is not that they fail, it's that they succeed in the wrong direction. They climb ladders leaning against walls they don't even believe in. They chase money to escape fear, only to find fear waiting at the top with a bigger house and emptier nights. What they miss, what Machiavelli would whisper from the shadows, is that the game of money is really a test of clarity. Can you stay awake in a world designed to sedate you? Can you see the strings behind the spectacle and still move gracefully within it? Because awareness, not wealth, is the real power. Awareness turns every transaction into a lesson, every loss into leverage, every betrayal into data. When you reach that level of clarity, you stop being a victim of fortune and start becoming her dance partner. Machiavelli said fortune is like a woman. She favors the bold, the decisive, the daring. Not because she's cruel, but because she despises hesitation. And money, too, loves the bold, not the reckless, but the decisive. The world doesn't pay for potential, it pays for certainty. So be bold but quiet, decisive but patient, ruthless with time, generous with vision. Because money doesn't follow dreams, it follows direction. Let's go deeper. Every coin you earn represents a choice, an exchange of your energy, your focus, your life force. You spend it carelessly, you're not just losing money, you're losing fragments of yourself. That's why most people feel drained, not fulfilled when they spend. Their money leaves carrying the weight of their confusion. But when you spend intentionally, when your money flows toward alignment, it multiplies. It strengthens the foundation of who you are. You stop feeling loss and start feeling momentum. That's when money starts to obey you. The key is never to worship money or reject it. Both are forms of slavery. To worship it is to live in greed. To reject it is to live in fear. The middle path to master it, that's the Machiavellian art. To look at money not as a prize or poison, but as a mirror of your philosophy. Show me how someone earns, spends, and invests, and I'll show you their soul. You can fake words, not patterns. Machiavelli's ultimate wisdom wasn't cynicism, it was clarity about human nature. He knew people act from self-interest, but that self-interest could be predicted, shaped, and aligned. The wise don't fight human nature, they use it. They align their strategy with the currents of desire instead of resisting them. That's how money truly moves, not through resistance, but through alignment. You don't need to control everyone, just understand what moves them. Once you do, you can influence quietly, profit endlessly, and remain untouched by chaos. Because the greatest power is not dominance, it's direction. The ability to subtly tilt the field so that fortune rolls toward you without anyone noticing. And this is the quiet truth every empire hides. Wealth isn't the goal, it's the proof. Proof that you learn the laws of nature, that value is perception, that control is freedom, that mastery begins within. Everything beyond that is noise. So the question is, how do I make money? It's what kind of mind would money have to follow? Because if your habits are disciplined, if your word is trusted, if your presence commands attention, wealth becomes inevitable. It's not a chase, it's a consequence. Machiavelli would tell you, fortune bows to those who prepare. She's unpredictable, yes, but she's not random. She tests every man to see who's willing to suffer for clarity, who's willing to act when others hesitate, who's willing to see the world for what it is and still move forward without bitterness. And when you reach that point, when you see through the game yet continue to play it with grace, you've already won. Not because you're rich, but because you're free. Freedom is the only real wealth. Everything else is ornament. Titles fade, markets shift, currencies collapse, but freedom of thought, freedom of movement, freedom of decision, those are the treasures no thief can touch. The tragedy is that most people sell those first. They trade them for comfort, for approval, for predictability. And once gone, they spend the rest of their lives trying to buy them back at an impossible price. Machiavelli would look at that and shake his head. He'd say, "You cannot buy back the crown you gave away." Meaning, once you've handed over your autonomy for convenience, you've surrendered the throne of your own mind. You've let the merchants of distraction, the priests of comfort, the rulers of routine dictate the script of your life. Money, in its purest form, is meant to buy back time, the only thing truly yours. But when you use it to buy symbols instead, it owns you. The car, the watch, the brand, they don't serve you, they signal you. They tell the world what you want to be seen as, not who you are. That's the quiet slavery of modern ambition. Spending a lifetime trying to prove success to people too busy pretending to notice. Machiavelli would tell you that the wise man does not display his gold, he displays his command of himself. The strongest form of wealth is anonymity, to move freely, unseen, untouchable. Power works best when it doesn't need to announce itself. He'd remind you that wealth should make you dangerous, not decorative. Dangerous, not in violence, but in independence, in the way you can't be manipulated, can't be bought, can't be frightened. The man who needs nothing is ungovernable. That's the real reason systems are built the way they are, to keep you needing, to make you believe there's always another level, another product, another form of validation. Because a man who feels incomplete is easy to control, but a man who knows he is enough, he's untouchable. So if you want to understand how money truly works, start there by dismantling need. Every need you destroy becomes capital. Every impulse you master turns into leverage. Each temptation resisted is a debt repaid to your future self. The irony is beautiful. The less you chase, the more you attract. The less you crave, the more you see. Detachment sharpens perception. And perception is the truest currency there is. Machiavelli understood this psychological geometry of power. He knew that the ruler who depends least on others commands most of them. The same law governs money. When you stop chasing it, when you use it strategically instead of emotionally, it starts orbiting you. You become the gravity it obeys. Because here's the final hidden rule. Money isn't about possession, it's about flow. It's a current, an energy. Hold it too tightly and it stagnates. Release it too blindly and it vanishes. But direct it with purpose toward creation, mastery, expansion, and it multiplies. The point was never to hoard, it was to circulate power intelligently. Machiavelli would warn you against hoarding. He saw how greed corrodes intelligence. The miser dies surrounded by wealth that serves no one. He mistook accumulation for control, and in the end, he controlled nothing, not even his own fears. Because that's what hoarding is, fear disguised as prudence. The fear of loss, the fear of change, the fear of being without. But money was never meant to be static. It's a living reflection of human exchange, human belief, human motion. You can't cling to it without suffocating it. Let it move, let it breathe, but make sure it flows through structures you control, not ones that control you. That's why Machiavelli valued systems over symbols. He'd say, a prince is not wealthy because of gold, but because of order. Meaning, true wealth is architecture, the network of habits, alliances, disciplines, and insights that protect your position long after the coins are gone. Order is the invisible fortress around fortune. Without it, money becomes noise, distracting, fleeting, meaningless. But with it, every decision compounds, every move builds momentum. That's how empires outlive their creators, through design. Now look around your own life. Where is your order? Do your actions build leverage or just movement? Do your habits generate value or only exhaustion? Are you building systems that serve you, or are you trapped inside systems that feed on you? These questions are worth more than any investment advice because they aim at the core, not your wallet, but your will. Machiavelli's greatest insight was not that men seek power, but that they avoid responsibility. They crave the throne but fear the weight of the crown. Wealth amplifies that fear because it exposes every illusion you've built about yourself. It forces you to ask, who am I when I can buy anything? And that's where most fall, not because they lose their money, but because they lose their meaning. They built their identity around the chase, and when the chase ends, there's nothing left to run from. The silence becomes unbearable. But for the few who understand, for those who approach wealth as a test of self-mastery, the silence becomes sacred. They use it to listen deeper, to refine their direction, to see how much of their life still belongs to them. The ultimate lesson of Machiavellian wealth isn't greed or cunning, it's awareness. The awareness that money is simply a mirror reflecting your relationship to power, fear, and purpose. Master those, and you master the game itself. Because in the end, the purpose of wealth isn't luxury. It's leverage over your environment, over your time, over the noise of the crowd. To live by choice, not by chance. To spend your days building, not begging. To rise above the endless theater of comparison and reclaim the simplicity of control. And when you reach that place where money no longer defines you, where success no longer distracts you, where loss no longer frightens you, that's when you finally understand what Machiavelli was really teaching. Not how to conquer others, but how to stop being conquered by yourself. He would tell you, the wise man rules twice, first his mind, then his world. That is how money truly works. It is a mirror of mastery. The one who rules his mind will always have enough because his value no longer depends on external validation. His calm becomes currency. His focus becomes fortune. So let the others chase shadows. Let them measure their worth in cars, followers, digits, and noise. You build in silence. You design systems. You study the currents of fortune and move with precision. You treat money not as God, but as servant. And when the world asks how you did it, how you moved from scarcity to command, you'll smile and say nothing. Because explanation is for those still searching for permission. You'll simply keep walking, calm, unhurried, untouchable, because you finally understand that the game was never about getting more. It was about becoming more. Wealth is not in your bank. It's in your discipline, your detachment, your discernment. Every dollar is a decision. Every decision a declaration of who you are becoming. Machiavelli's lessons on wealth were never about greed, they were about realism. To see things as they are, not as you wish them to be, and still choose wisely. That's the edge, that's the art, that's freedom. And that freedom, once earned, cannot be taken because it's no longer tied to fortune. It lives in your perception, your patience, your unshakable clarity. Money may build empires, but clarity builds legacies. So here's how money really works. It obeys the disciplined, it tests the reckless, it exposes the insecure, and it rewards the clear-minded. It's not the prize, it's the proof. The proof that you understood the hidden law Machiavelli tried to whisper through time, that power belongs not to those who fight for control, but to those who no longer need it. And once you understand that, you stop chasing. You start moving with quiet precision. And the world, without even realizing it, begins to orbit you. Because now you are wealth.